Ladies and gentlemen, we're back for UFC on ESPN, Uriah Hall versus Sean Strickland. But first, as usual, let's break down what happened at UFC Vegas 32, TJ Dillashaw and Corey Sandhagen. Couple of crazy decisions over there. Now, I do want to clear something up real quick. I mean, this is a great card to really assess the overall issues with judging in MMA. We have one where the subjectivity is just so obvious. You talk about Sandhagen's comments in the Dillashaw fight. Basically, if you want to score it for control and wrestling and pushing pace, then you got to give it to TJ. If you want to talk about damage, you want to talk about controlling a fight when it was in those standing positions, you got to give it to Corey. So first off, my entire issue is in a professional sport, having the subjectivity in judging when you cannot finish your opponent is absolutely insane. Personally, 48-47 Sandhagen. I did not count so much of that control because, frankly, Sandhagen's way of defending takedowns, of turning his back, kind of takes away from the idea that the other fighter really did his work to get it there. So not taking anything away from TJ because it was the perfect game plan, but Sandhagen's defense to turn his back, get to the fence is what really costed him some of those rounds in the first place. And so for how much damage he was able to do on the feet, taking out his knee, opening up huge cuts that could have potentially ended the fight are all things that really stand out to me. But again, if you want to judge it on control, all those things, then you give it to TJ. For me personally, in my judging, I actually score it for Sandhagen because I hold more substance to those aspects of the fight versus the control, things like that, despite not saying that TJ did not do those things very well. But on a universal scale, we need to figure something out here because for us all to have differences in opinions and those to also happen with judges, that is totally unacceptable in a professional sport. So I really would like to see some kind of onus taken on just the sport in general, whether it's on the state level in the US or whatever needs to be done for this sport to kind of catch up with the times. It needs to happen because we go down the list and we get way bigger issues. Paiva and Kyler Phillips, that fight was one where the line was atrocious, but, a lot of us were leaning Kyler to do well in that fight. Now, that first round, what more do you do to earn a 10-8? What more can you possibly do to earn a 10-8 in an MMA fight? That's really the question that you have to ask yourselves now. Is that dependent on subjectivity, or is that something that needs to be figured out ASAP? Because I think that's something that needs to be quantified on a very objective level, just like the Corey Sandhagen and TJ Dillashaw fight. Because for a lot of people, that fight should have been a draw. Now, because only one judge scored it that way, it was a majority decision in favor of Paiva for doing well in the next two rounds. So for me, a lot of questions, who cares about picks and all of those things? We're talking about a professional sport right now, not having the ability to objectively decide who wins a fight. I don't think there's a bigger problem in professional sports right now. Because in most sports, you put a ball in a basket, you put a ball in a net, or you shoot a puck in a net. Pretty simple stuff. You tied, you go to overtime. So I'm really just trying to figure out how we can differentiate between the rest of these sports and MMA because there's something very, very, very serious happening and we need to get that sorted out. And that takes us right into the Maycee Barber-Miranda Maverick fight. I mean, that fight really comes down to the second round. We just talked about the subjectivity of judging in the last two fights. This is one where the objectivity aspect of that second round needs to be considered because, in my opinion, for the first 2 to 3 minutes of that round, Miranda Maverick was dominating. And it was domination in all of the areas that you claim to hold power in an MMA fight. So if those two fights are subjective, in a fight where she's controlling pace, pressure, control, striking, all different levels, I mean, getting the takedowns, I don't know what more a fighter can do to earn a 10-9 in a round, even with the other fighter coming back for the last minute or two. That's the part that really threw me off with that fight because obviously Maycee Barber, with a gassing Miranda Maverick, took that round without question. But she really only found that momentum over the last minute of that second round. And it's crazy to think that that entire round was lost for Miranda because of that 1 to 2 minutes for Maycee Barber. I'm blown away by that one. I'll be honest, the first two don't really upset me. And it has nothing to do with the Super Saiyan pick anyway. I'm just really, really starting to hate having to watch a sport where given the history that I have in sports of just watching in general, it's crazy to think how subjective a fighter's win or loss can be in what we consider a sport, where it very much has to be absolute. So, overall, we went 5-7. A lot of controversial stuff going on there. The two that really only make me bitter are the two that I switched to the last minute. Puna Soriano. Unfortunately, that first round wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be for him in that last minute. And Brendan Allen's striking is just getting better and better and better with Sanford. And he had the gas take advantage from the beginning. Now, when we go into that next fight, kicking off the card, Belbita and Goldie, I really just switched my gut to the technical fighter. And frankly, I think Belbita looked just as technical, if not more, and the power and volume and everything that Goldie struggles with against other fighters was all there for the picking. So 5-7 overall. Gonna put a smile on my face after that little rant, because frankly, I'm just really disappointed that we're not able to enjoy the outcomes of these events given the subjectiveness of the result. It just doesn't make any sense. And if anything, it just creates more controversy and more media, which is fine. But I mean, this is the fight game. And I think that if there's any sport where you would want some objectivity and some absolute judging and ways of scoring the fight to exist, it's this sport. These lives are on the line. And I think it's about time that gets addressed before we just start to lose interest in the sport because of something so ridiculous.